Y'all, it's been a while since I've seen a day of drama this big on Wizard101. And today we need to talk about everything that happened today, including the response that Wizard101 put out just a couple of hours ago. So the context of all of this drama recently is that the recent spring update has had quite a few bugs. If you've been following the channel, you're probably aware of most, if not all of them. But basically, right, there has been many glitches. A bunch of shadow spells that were supposed to give auras didn't make it into live run. Scion spell sometimes when you upgrade them literally disappear, so you lose progress and spellments when you're upgrading specific spells. As you can see on the left side of my screen, previous gifts disappeared in a recent hotfix. So while new gifts work, if you had old gifts before this update, right now they're not accessible. And finally, a day after a maintenance where they did a hotfix to address a portal of peril bug, one day after that they took down the entire event because there were still glitches with the portal of peril. So what you see is their response and, like, I guess just them trying to be transparent, which at least I can appreciate, even though that's a lot of glitches for one update. Now I'm gonna summarize it, but if y'all want to read it, here you go. But basically, they said in lieu of the live stream today, they're taking the time to try to address a lot of the outstanding issues that they've had with the spring update. The statement went on to explain how the portal of peril specifically has been, buggy since its inception, and they've had to take it down time and time again, even after trying to fix these bugs. They're going to be starting the portal of peril feature, quote unquote, from the ground up, so it's probably still going to be a while before we have a functional portal of peril event on Wiz. And it's not the news that, I personally wanted to hear. I was actually very excited about this specific portal of peril event. I literally made a video about it yesterday. But if it's buggy, a good idea is still going to be bad if it's buggy, right? So I guess we will have to wait. At least they're being transparent that they're not putting up with, a low quality release. They're probably going to be reworking it from the ground up. The statement also went on to talk about the gift box issue. Now, this is actually some details to that were added to the situation that I don't think were really publicized outside of the Wizard101 Discord. So if y'all don't know about this issue, this is something you should probably know about. So this was caused by some kind of butterfly effect issue. They were trying to fix another thing. The gift box got affected, but they did put out a fix yesterday morning where current gifts do work. It's just previous gifts in your inventory, they still have to figure out a way to make them accessible again. And apparently inventory issues, they're taking them seriously, but they're also very sensitive. They're very hard to fix. Now, I personally didn't even know if it was safe necessarily to still gift, so at least that's good. Current gifts do work. But yeah, y'all, they're gonna have to figure out a way to get these things back into our inventory. I gifted myself energy elixirs when this bug was live, but before the fix that they did yesterday morning. Right now, I have crowns that have been taken away from my account. No elixirs to show for it. That's pretty bad. They're gonna have to figure out a way to, like, look at everyone's transaction history, I guess, in the gifted tabs, and then, maybe even add them manually or something. I don't know how they do that. But yes, another issue that I think will take time to fix, but at least they're acknowledging what they have done to address it. And finally, they also did acknowledge the other miscellaneous glitches that I guess got through test run, including the Scion Spellman glitch that we just mentioned before reading all this. And the acknowledgement is great. Me personally, what I care about is how they're going to prevent this in the future, because this hasn't been up to par with updates that we've seen even recently, like the Selenopolis update. And they said that they're going to be working on figuring out better ways to report bugs, especially ones in live realm. Rapid, one of the devs that works on the game, actually acknowledged that maybe they need like a live bug reporter so that things that are happening get to them faster. And what I think is worth noting is that a few hours before this written statement, right, from Falmea, I guess, was basically, put out, another message from Rapid in the Discord caught a lot of, like, people were flaming it. I think the suggestion that he made was that sometimes these bugs aren't actually reported in test realm, so they cannot be fixed as easily when the actual bugs aren't being reported. And while I'm sure that's true for things like the Spellament glitch with, like, Scions, I'm sure very few people, if any, were even aware of it in test realm, because you don't really upgrade Spellments in test realm. You get them in live realm and then upgrade them. I just don't think that's really true for other things like the portal of peril. I think I totally understand why people would have found that message kind of, like, annoying, because, like, when you face a bunch of bugs, your first thought is like, why are the players being blamed for not reporting these, especially when some of them are being reported? I know people just want something to be outraged about, but I'm just gonna keep it real for the sake of being an adult about things like this. I think that statement was right in some ways and wrong in other ways, but what it represents is what's important. There seems to be a breakdown in communication in terms of where bugs are reported and how they get to the people that can fix the bugs. Right, on one hand, you have someone that can fix this bug maybe, or at least can help. They're saying that they weren't aware that the portal of peril bug was reported. And yet within the Discord, there was a channel where one of the portal of peril bugs was reported. My concern is that there are places where these bug reports are going, where some people, especially like people that are high effort in terms of how they report bugs, they're going out of their way to put it there, and they're not reaching the people that can do something about it. So hopefully, I hope they focus on a live bug reporting tool, but also they have things like Discord channels where bugs are reported. I just don't think they're actually, like, you know, getting to the places where they need to as well as they could. That's my humble feedback. I'm not trying to point fingers at whoever, blaming whoever. I don't think that's really productive to, like, just fixing these things and actually having a good relationship between players and dev. And on the topic of this breakdown in communication, me personally, I was very, very frustrated with certain parts of this test run, because every single test run patch, if y'all don't know, they are going to be adding stuff here and there. But if y'all actually remember this specific test run, unlike previous ones, they didn't have patch notes that updated to reflect these changes. It's much, much harder to give feedback, like from the player side, right? Much harder to give feedback on a feature not working if you don't even know if the feature was fixed to begin with, if a feature was updated to begin with. I found that very frustrating in test run. Like, there were second chance gauntlets that worked and then they got fixed, but there was no patch note to reflect the change. So I didn't even know whether I should test a second chance gauntlet, because am I testing something that they are already aware of is going to get fixed? Am I testing a new version of this? And then when people do find these bugs, they are accessing certain channels like the Discord to actually, like, detail what went wrong. These are also not reaching them. So I think there's a problem with the way, especially during test run, during the buggiest form of the build, I guess. I think there just needs to be way better tools. I think there needs to be not just the Discord, but other forums involved in this, so that you don't have to be in the Discord to even, like, feel like you're informed. Patch notes would be important. Things on the launcher, things like this, where they actually do written statements out more often, saying what they're aware of that is bugged and what they're not, before test run even goes live. Right, at the end of the day, we could all be mad, but I think this is a learning experience. I'm not really that mad anymore. I feel like initially I was like, wow, this is a bad update. But I'm sure when these bugs are fixed, we can appreciate the good things as well. I think right now, very, very hard to do so, especially when we're, like, comparing it to, like, what was, I would argue, a goated Selenopolis update. Right, clearly they can put out a banger update. Something went wrong this time. Hopefully they learn from it. I appreciate the transparency, even though I do think that it's a little bit delayed this time around. That's my honest thoughts on this, y'all. I hope this was, like, you know, a more or less unbiased perspective, even as a player that's, if y'all watch the streams, y'all know I'm anything but unbiased about this. But this stuff is good, right? I think statements that we could, like, you know, actually look into, you know, we have an update on what's working, what's not. Are they aware of it? These are all good. Let me know what y'all's experience has been with this test run going into live recently. And what features would you like them to implement so our feedback reaches them in a more streamlined and a better way, in a way that gets us the outcome of less buggy updates faster. Love to hear y'all's thoughts and comments on this. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave a sub if you're new. And as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, y'all, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome. See y'all soon. And yeah.